The meeting is now being recorded, and I'll take the stand for this meeting of the East Kilbride Area Committee on 31st of January 2023. I've already noted that we have Councillor Anderson, Councillor Archie Buchanan, Councillor Matthew Buchanan, Councillor Convery, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Fagan and Councillor Ferguson present. Is Councillor Ferguson Miller, I can see, is present online, and Councillor Frame. We have apologies from Councillor Gray. Councillor Kerr is present. We have apologies from Councillor MacDonald and Councillor McAdams, and also present are Councillor McDougall, Councillor Robb, Salamati, Scott and Councillor Watson. Thank you.
Okay, thanks,
Oops. There we are.
The minutes of previous meetings, is that better, David? The proposal and seconder for the minutes. Fagan, seconder. Don't all rush at once. David, John, Anderson. Thanks for that. Just before we move on to item 3, if you could just note that I've got 2 items for urgent business. Okay, thank you. Very quick ones. Won't keep you here all day. So, item 3, loaves and fishes. We have Leslie Davison here on my right-hand side, who's very nicely agreed to come along and explain what loaves and fishes do. They're certainly, you'll find in our chat that they're doing a lot more than they used to, which I'll leave to Leslie to explain. Okay, Leslie.
I think it's probably worth saying, however, that none of us actually want me to be here today. You don't want me to be here, and I don't want to be here, and by that I mean none of us want me to be doing what I'm doing. The situation is we have to do it. Somebody has to do it. So I think if all I do today is just give you a wee flavour of what we're doing, like Councillor Buchanan says, I promise you it's much more than you think, and it's certainly much more than it ever was before. And it doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter if it's the economy, if it's Brexit, if it's Ukraine. None of that matters to me or to the people that I'm helping. The bottom line is I need to feed them, and somehow I need to be able to continue to do that. We have a tagline at Loaves and Fishes, for want of a better expression, and it's that we give people full tummies, warm hearts and clear heads. And by that what we mean is we're more than a bag of food. It's not enough just to feed someone. There has to be more than that. The minute you come to a food bank, you immediately feel separate and less than everyone else. You feel like you've failed. So to give someone a bag of food and send them on their way is not enough. We give them a hug when someone comes to us, and we put them back together and we say, right, okay, so what else do you need? Do you need to speak to Money Matters? Do you need to speak to the Citizens Advice? Do you need help with school uniforms? Do you need women's aid? All of that kind of thing. All of that is beyond a bag of food. And that's what really, really matters. So what I usually do is, and what I want to do today, is give you a couple of numbers and a couple of stories just to give you a flavour of what's going on and what we're doing just now. For me, numbers are good, but I need the visual of a story to understand. So right now, we're doing roughly 150 food parcels out our front door, as I would call it, for people turning up and needing help every week. Now, amongst those people, let me tell you, I have nurses, I have people in jobs. The dynamic of people who use a food bank has changed so drastically in recent years. It's a very, very different situation. So we've got 150 regulars, if you like, out the front door. There's our agency parcels, social workers, housing officers, health visitors, maybe 50 of those a week. Those are crisis food parcels. They'll come to us on behalf of their clients. We're supporting the new Salvation Army project just in the student accommodation in Hamilton for Ukrainian families. We deliver food to them every week. Over Christmas, we helped set up a food pantry in Hairmyres Hospital for staff members who were hungry. and who had approached senior management to say that they were struggling and they felt they weren't able to do their job adequately because they were hungry. So we helped set that up. We're just a wee charity. We're not the Trussell Trust. We're not a national organisation. Our funding is limited, although the council are generous when they can be, and I'm very aware of that. But it's hard, and so many people need us just now. It's a huge pressure. I'll give you a number. Just now, there are more food banks in the UK than there are McDonald's franchises. So there's 52 food banks in Glasgow City and 18 McDonald's. That's a number I use when I do talks in schools because that resonates with the kids, but actually, it's a crazy number, an absolutely crazy number. So you've got all the numbers of parcels we're doing. Again, pre-COVID, we were maybe doing 25 parcels a week. You know, it was a very small operation out of a very small warehouse with a handful of volunteers. We've now had to move to a double warehouse, which is a commercial let, which I need to find the money to pay the bills for. But that's the space that we need for our volunteers to be safe. But here's a good number. We've got over 40 volunteers who regularly turn up every week. And I think that's amazing. We retain our volunteers. They don't leave because everybody's committed to what we're doing. Part of that, I think, is because it's important to me that people feel valuable and they feel appreciated. And so as much as our job is for a food bank, it's also really important that we're a useful community resource where people can come and feel useful and feel like they're giving back. It's like I say, we're more than a bag of food. A lot more than that. And I think, and this is kind of a dramatic statement, it's about dark and light. So we see a lot of darkness, we see a lot of sadness, we see people in real dire straits, but here's the thing, there's also the light, and the light is our volunteers that come every week. It's the people that donate, even though they're struggling, people that donate food to us, people that donate money to us. That's the light, and that's what keeps every one of those volunteers going. Now, we're a secular organisation. We're not linked to any church. We work with many, many churches across Lanarkshire. And I don't mean that in a spiritual way, if you like. I mean it in a genuine black and white way. There is real darkness that we face, but thank goodness we've got light as well. So for me to understand things, I need a visual. So if you don't mind, I'm going to tell you two quick stories of who's coming to Loaves and Fishes just now. So a lady came to us maybe last year, and she'd gone back to college because she wanted to improve her prospects, earn more money, look after her children better. She got a student loan. This obviously impacted on her benefits. So when she came to us, we gave her a hug. We gave her a bag of food. We gave her our toiletries, our cleaning products, our sanitary products. When we can afford it, we like to give people farm foods vouchers because that then gives them an autonomy and a control that they don't have if we're just giving them a bag of food. So here's your food, but here's also a farm foods voucher to go and buy fresh food for yourself. And I think that, again, is about making people feel respected and like a whole person, again. So we gave her a voucher, we gave her her food, we gave her her toiletries. She came back the next week and she said, Leslie, I've never told MD this, but that's the first time in 6 months that I've eaten every day. Because what she had to do was not eat for 2 days a week to make her money go far enough. Now this woman, and she knows I tell her story, she looks like me and she looks like you. And that is the whole point of this. The people who are coming to Loaves and Fishes right now, it's not who you think. She was doing her best and it wasn't enough. So she went hungry for 2 days a week. She still had to parent her kids. She still had to go to college. She still had to drive her car. So you can be sure she doesn't go hungry anymore. We make sure she's okay, and she definitely doesn't need us to the degree she did before. But the best thing about this story is she volunteers once a week in our office. So I am, and Joe can probably testify to that because he's been in my office, a nightmare when it comes to organisation. It's chaos, right? It's chaos. And so she comes in every week and she does my emails. She gets me organised. And I love that we put her back together, but she's keeping us going along. And I think that shows just how important Loaves and Fishes can be in people's lives. The other story I wanted to tell is a relatively recent one where a lady had fled violence. She was a nurse, this girl. She'd fled violence. She was off work. She didn't know how to work. She didn't know how the system worked. She was in crisis housing. Things were really hard for her. She came up with her cute baby. And you can imagine, we're a bunch of middle-aged women. We were all, oh, look at the cute baby. This is fabulous. The cute baby was wrapped in a towel below its jacket because she couldn't afford to buy nappies. she had no money to buy nappies and she didn't know how to access them. So her baby was wrapped in a towel. And this was in 2022. Do you know? It just blows my mind. So you can be sure, obviously, we hugged her, we gave her food, we gave her nappies, we gave her baby food, we signposted her every way we could. But that's the stuff that we're seeing on a regular basis. And yes, we help everyone. We help people with mental health issues, with addiction issues, all of these things. And it's so important. But oh my goodness me, the spread of people who need help and the depth of what they need is so vast now. It's really, really scary. I talk about being kept awake at night. Absolutely. We're all volunteers. Nobody's paid in Loaves and Fishes. Nobody ever has been. But somehow we need to keep doing it. And I'm not here to do a whole lobbying, give me money, help me, none of that. I figure if you guys just talk about us, if you've got people that need our help, then for goodness sake, send them to us. We're a non-referral food bank. You don't need a pink slip. I think the concept of having to prove you're poor enough is a terrible thing. Believe me, people are not ripping off food banks in huge amounts. It's not happening. It's a horrible thing to do. Nobody wants to do it. So send anyone to us. We will help anyone that needs it. And just talk about us. Let people know we're working in Straven, we're working in East Kilbride, we're in Blantyre delivering, we're in Hamilton, we're everywhere. We will help anyone. But it's just getting so hard. I'm trying to focus on corporate sponsorship just now because corporate social responsibility is a big thing. I'm approaching as many private businesses as I can. Would you consider £50 a month, £25 a month? All of that adds up. If you know anyone who's in that kind of situation, please send them to us. But basically, just keep us visible. Let people know we're there. I want to keep doing this for as long as we're needed. And I can't do that on my own. So being given this opportunity just to come and tell you about us today and what we're doing, it really means a huge amount to us. It means a lot to me. I didn't want to bother with technology and slides, and I just wanted to talk to you and tell you this is what we're doing. And if you can help us in any way, then please do. And thank you so much. That's all I wanted to say.
Thanks very much for that, Leslie. Any questions? Joe.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Leslie. And I'm glad everyone. I've been in the office and I've experienced her enthusiasm for myself. So I'm glad that everyone else has had the opportunity to do so now. And I suppose I just wanted to reflect. Because actually the kind of crisis that we're seeing isn't just that it's a food crisis, it's energy, it's people's bills, when it comes down to it, poverty is just not having enough money. And what I was reflected on is that people recall before Christmas the council had real issues with the repair service. The repair service was overwhelmed by the number of call-outs that we had to undertake. And I'd actually had been in the depots before down at Pollock Avenue and saw all the new boilers that had been kind of stockpiled in anticipation of what would happen in the winter. And when I spoke to officials after it, I said, how did this happen? Why were we hit so acutely all at once? Because it didn't just happen in South Lanarkshire, it happened in North Lanarkshire and Fife and the GHA with all the big landlords. People turned the heating on at once. People waited until December, until it was icy outside and frosty outside, and put the heating on at that last moment. And it kind of underlines for me that actually the work that the council does in a lot of ways bluntly saves people's lives in a way that you wouldn't expect, because that's what our repair workforce were doing. And bluntly, that's what the work that Loaves and Fishes are doing in the community will do as well. And I think I suppose when Leslie says she's coming here, she's not really here looking for funding or whatever. I think there's a bit of education to be done around just how acute this is, because we've actually been hearing about the growth of food banks for at least 10 years, probably more than that now. We've been hearing about it for years, and sometimes this becomes white noise. It's not white noise. There are human stories behind it that are just becoming more and more intensely disturbing. And I think the I made this suggestion before when people have come to speak, but actually perhaps it's a suggestion for the committee, is we maybe want to ask our comms people who will liaise with our different groups on the ground, the CPP, etc., to look at how we can maybe raise some of the visibility of what Loaves and Fishes are doing. Although I have to say they do a great job themselves, an enormous amount of work themselves to do that. Although you might not always think you do have a good reputation in the community because of the work of what you do. So maybe there's a suggestion how we could take it forward.
That it almost gives us the oxygen to keep going when people come and see us, because we get to show you and say, no, look, this is what we're doing. The help you give us, this is what happens, this is the result of it, and we need to do that. The volunteers need to see that people are interested and people care. So please, if anyone at all wants to come and have a tour, please get in touch with me. I would absolutely love that.
David.
Thanks, Chair. It's not really a question, it's more just a comment. I think I'd be disappointed if all the councillors involved today weren't aware of the good work that you do, but it is good to get that refresher. It's good to hear a wee bit more about what you're doing, and I'm aware you do go around groups and organisations because I hear it quite often. But really, I think my comment would be thank you very much for the work you do, that your volunteers do, and unfortunately you are very much needed just now. But I'm sure I speak for all councillors, anything that we can do to assist you in any way uses. Thanks.
Any other? Loaves and Fishes, from when the other Dennis was there. I mean, it's not just food that they're taking. They're taking, I was delivering drugs the other day there. Linen, blankets and stuff like that. So they're looking for a lot of stuff, and we need to get that message out in as many ways as possible, that you're looking for a lot of this stuff, you know. And we've all got stuff lying in the house we don't need. Have a look. It's not full of rubbish, but I've got some things that I should throw out. Right, okay. Well, thank you very much for that talk. That was quite entertaining. Thank you. We'll let you escape, okay? The asset transfer update, and we'll get John McCafferty and Ian Mulholland here today. Over to you guys.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The report, as you say, is an update on the community asset transfer process, and the Council's decided to promote the particular process, and this report just highlights some of the key points around it, but more importantly, there's a presentation that Ian will provide on the kind of process involved and just some of the key questions. If members could please wait till Ian finishes the presentation, and we'll answer any questions required. So the background to it is obviously that under part of the Community Empowerment Act in 2015 was the right to community asset transfer. So we have the Council has legal obligations in terms of CAT. It enables any properly constituted body to submit an application to a public body, not just the council, but other public bodies, to look at taking over land or property where they can demonstrate there's a better use for it. And as increasingly, we got a lot of interest in community asset transfer. Unfortunately, where the council agreed to employ a dedicated community asset transfer officer for a couple of years to look at the internal processes and make sure the promotion is carried out across South Lanarkshire. So I'm very welcome having Ian here. And what we've done so far is we've looked at the internal processes. So the website is greatly improved, and some of that's going to be improved further and going live. There's an animation. We have online training. In terms of, there's a short course available for anybody in the council to look at to understand what's going on with community asset transfer. The important part is the external promotion, and I think working very closely with VASLAN in terms of, and the locality networks, our voluntary sector, to get the message across, but also working with organisations like Community Ownership Support Service, who are the national body to support CAT, and a recent example of that work is that Ian was involved in an event with the SFA and the South Lanarkshire Leisure and Culture around community asset transfer, and over 50 people were present at that to hear about it, because there is a demand, particularly football clubs. And just making that point, in terms of good examples of CAT, I would obviously say that EK United and the transfer of Kirton Home is a good example of that work in action. So just finish for me, progress to date. We've had 75 organisations in the last financial year, 13 of those from the East Kilbride area. We're currently working with 30 organisations, and 5 of those are from the East Kilbride area, and we're expecting that there'll be 5 more submitted actual formal applications, and we expect that two of those will come from the East Kilbride area. So I'll pass you over to Ian for the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Are you okay? Is this visible? Yep. Thank you very much. So thanks for the opportunity to come here and update everybody on the process of community asset transfer. Just a short presentation to obviously encapsulate what we've achieved over the last year, but also hopefully to give a little bit of education to elected members and other staff, colleagues about the process, because sometimes the process can be complex and sometimes there are misunderstandings about how it works. So the first slide, in which I'm talking about legislation, John touched on this earlier. Obviously, the legislation has been in since 2015, but as year on year it grows. More and more organisations are interested. And the really important point here is to realise that the legislation entitles applicant organisations which are suitably constituted to apply. So effectively it's up to us to actually say no to an application and justify a reason not. They have the right to apply. Now, this obviously gives the occasions in when we can say no. They're very few and far between. Generally, if the property is on the open market, if we have negotiations, or in the occasion where we have refused an application, there can be a period of 2 years where that group can not reapply for that, the property or land that they have applied for previously. So, again, I'm picking up on this because it's a very relevant point. The groups are entitled to submit their application if they meet the organisational criteria. And therein, I'm quoting the legislation there, the authority must agree to the request unless there are reasonable grounds for refusing it. And really, this is the important part of the process. It's for us to ensure that the organisation is capable of delivering the project and has provided evidence to show best value. Quite a lot of applicant organisations are goodwill and have good intentions, but don't necessarily have the structures and the business case to prove the need for the asset. So where possible, along with Vaslan and other partners, we try to provide that support so that the best quality of application is in. Obviously, part of the process for me is that I have to work with colleagues internally to find out what our projected uses are, and thereafter view them against the best value community benefit the application shows. So it's easy to say that some examples are very clear cut. As I say to people when I'm out there, you can apply for a school, it's unlikely you're going to get it. But other instances where perhaps there's halls that are sitting that aren't getting used, if they have a business case and it's strong enough, we have a look at it and we consider it and give it due consideration. Now, the criteria, there are 2 broad categories here. A community of geography speaks for itself. Generally, if this is a number of people that live in a community come together to process an application, to take on a community hall or something such like. Community of interest is where, I suppose the easiest example of that is football clubs. People may not live in an area, but they have a combined thing that they do together. So these are the 2 types. And obviously, when you apply for community asset transfer, you can apply to lease, to purchase, or have a managed arrangement. Most of our applicant organisations, lease is most suitable for both us and them. The final point there is that applicants need to have a suitable constitution for the process, and this is for the purposes of asset lock, so that we don't dispose of our lease or sale a property to them and they in turn sell it to Wimpy to build houses on or something such like. So it closes that. Okay, this is the bit that we ask groups to provide, and we work with them in this because, as I say, there's a bit of an issue nationwide about CAT, and that is that quite often applicant organisations come from the most well-heeled and capable organisations, and we sometimes are not getting applications from the communities that don't have the capacity. And I think that's something that I'm keen to work on over the next year, is to basically build up that capacity, so we are representing people in communities that have that are on the SIMD or things like that. So we provide applicants with information, hopefully show to them that it isn't simple to run a property. It can be costly. It can be issues, and give them that information so that they can make a decision as to whether it is truly an asset or it is a liability. Because there are occasions where basically taking on certain properties or land can be a liability. So obviously the final decision lies with the applicant, but I suppose it's caveat emptor to a degree. They have to do their due diligence to ensure that the property is something positive. Now, the important part from this is that obviously your end product is generally a feasibility or a business plan, but one of the key things to community asset transfer is community engagement. And this is where, if you're going to come in with a view to taking on an asset, it is utterly important that you engage the people who either use that asset or live within the area of it. And this is something that I stress to all applicants. They have to do their engagement to prove that there's an evidence of need, to prove that the community are going with them. And this is key, I think, for successful applications. There have been instances in the past where community engagement hasn't been strong and quite often have resulted in applications not moving forward. So once an applicant formally applies, the process is locked. Effectively, we can only speak to that individual for the period of processing that application. So we're unable to sell or dispose for that whilst it's within that lock period. And that's an important piece of the legislation. It gives them primacy in terms of speaking to us. One of the key elements of establishing a community asset transfer is the community benefit. And to do this, we evaluate all applications looking at the benefit that it provides, who from the community will use the facility, what other activities will it offer. So it's an important part of the process is to look at, is this going to be beneficial for the community and what is the value to that? This can often be quite a difficult thing because it's a nebulous area, but it's a key part of the area to ascertain the impact of any potential project. Internal process, as I've alluded to earlier on, once we validate, there's a 6-month period, and that 6 months we have to do quite a lot of work internally, information gathering, giving the public the right to reply formally, scoring applications, and then it goes through senior personnel for an endorsement or a decision, which thereafter gets put in front of a committee for finalisation. So that's all to be done within a 6-month period. And obviously, if an application is not completed within 6 months, we have to seek the endorsement of the applicant that we can extend that. If we have a reason to extend it, but we have to request the applicant allow us an extension in that. So it sits with them. If an applicant, a decision is refused, they have the right to a review by the council, by elected members, and thereafter, if they're not happy with that decision, they can appeal directly to the Scottish Government on issues of why their application was refused. And obviously, this outlines the process. I get a lot of approaches. John had mentioned 70 earlier on, but I field a lot more questions than that. And quite often, one of the key things is that organisations think that they are eligible to take on an asset. and I would ask elected members to consider this, the group have to be suitably constituted. They have to, in essence, have a charitable ethos. I get a lot of approaches from commercial football coaching clubs that are for profit, and this doesn't fit the legislation. The group have to meet certain key membership requirements and constitutional things. So if there's any doubt about that, I would encourage elected members just to refer the individuals or the group to me, and I'm happy to speak to them about it. And finally, obviously, in terms of progress, we submit an annual performance to the government, and we have steadily increased our community assets over the years. John did a lot of work of that prior to me. Over the period that I've been in, we have consolidated and improved our processes greatly. We're managing a lot more applicants now, and we're ensuring that the quality is suitable. So I'm not rushing people through the application process. I'm wanting to make sure there's a viability in their application. And I think that concludes. Thank you very much for the opportunity to outline this. Much appreciated.
Thanks very much. John.
Right, thanks, Chair. It's regarding the 7.2 and 7.3 on page 8. Can the councillors get a list of the assets regarding these areas, especially where you expect somebody to submit an application for it, just to give us an idea of what assets we might be losing to other groups from the council? Thanks.
Thanks for that. I'm happy to share the information. What I'm also conscious of is that I do not share application details with you until it actually becomes tangible, because quite often the discussions can take months and don't necessarily lead to anything. So when I actually get a premise that something is going to go to application, I do my best to speak to elected members, and if I haven't done that in the past, I'll ensure I do it in the future. But I have increasingly tried to reach out to make sure that you're aware and are involved in the discussions. So I'm happy to do so in future and make sure I do that in future.
Okay, David.
Oh, sorry, just lost my page here. It's gone dead. I think it probably ties in a bit, I think, with what John's asking. I think the paper alludes to sort of requests that are pending at different stages. Obviously, I'm aware of one. But it would be good if we knew what these were and where they are throughout the authority. And then on one of the slides, it says a register of assets to assist with identifying potential suitable properties. Is that list available? Are redirecting people to specific facilities via that list? I think it's a question, really.
Okay. In terms of the list, every public authority through the legislation is required to have an asset register. Our asset register is a searchable map on the MAPS website on South Lanarkshire Council, and we do not have a proactive approach in this authority to disposal. So effectively, applicants come to me. I do not actually provide information on what's available. So to date, effectively, people will see things are empty or else they'll have an idea about it, but we don't have a proactive disposal approach. So that's the answer to that one. Sorry. In terms of the first issue, in terms of notifying councillors, the base application that you refer to was always going to go to application, so therefore I tried to make sure that you were aware of that at an early stage. The other applications that are circling in East Kilbride, they're not as firm. But if you want to notify councillors at a very early stage, I'm happy to do that. It's just a matter of things might not proceed. Things can change, and it does take quite often between 6 to 12 months to actually formulate an application for a group. So, but I'm happy to notify at earliest if that's what's required. Not a problem.
I think really where I'm coming from though is to try and, is there a list of assets that either the council or leisure and culture are wanting to offload as asset transfers, if I want to be really blunt on it?
During my tenure, I have not, or I never have been given a list of active disposals, and I don't have that, and it's never been the case.
Okay then, thank you. Anybody else like to ask any questions? No, okay, thank you very much. Thanks very much for coming along, and no doubt we'll see you again. Right. Sorry. Oh, Gladys. Sorry. Gladys.
Hi, Chair. It was just to say that's twice the Conferro users have been kicked out, so we missed most of that item. We noticed a few of us we were all kicked out at the same time, and it was just, we were getting a wheel just spinning. Eventually kicked in again, but then it went away again.
Honest, Gladys, it wasn't me. You have a paper copy? Yeah. Okay. Right, thank you very much, gentlemen. I'll let you escape. Resources, proprietary budgeting, pupil equity funding, and it's Laura Mitchell who's the lead officer.
Thank you, Chair. I'm delighted to be here this afternoon to present Education Resources Update on the use of participatory budgeting through the pupil equity funding. The report is on pages 11 to 20 of your pack. The first part of the report is just a reminder of what was reported at the last area committee in terms of the figures for the pupil equity fund and how much the East Kilbride area have allocated, so it's approximately the 7% of their pupil equity fund money. Appendix 2 shows that 43% of schools allocated the minimum 5% of their PEF budget to participatory budgeting, whilst 57% of East Kilbride schools allocated more than this, which is a really good figure and is increased from last year. The update since the last area committee is that the participatory budgeting stakeholder groups in each of our schools has led the PB process, and that is now the consultation is now complete with the vote. So Appendix 3 on pages 14 to 17 takes you through the outcome of the vote for each school. You will see there the list of schools per learning community. You've got the percentage of PB that each school have allocated of their PEF money, what that equates to in terms of money, and what the vote was, the outcome of the vote in terms of what they're going to spend that percentage on. Appendix 4 then shows the distribution of the spend across the East Kilbride area, and Appendix 5 outlines the distribution of the votes by stakeholders across the East Kilbride area. So you can see there that the majority of the votes, 65%, were pupils, which is what we're looking for in terms of pupil voice. That equated to 8,065 pupil votes, 3,284 parent votes, and 945 staff votes. So in terms of our pupil votes, that was 82% compared to staff votes of 75%. That is 82% of the pupils across the East Kilbride area voted, which is a really good figure. So schools are now progressing with their spend to ensure that the minimum of 5% of their PB is spent in full by the end of March, along with the rest of their pupil equity funding as well. The Central Equity team are helping, supporting, ensure that there's full spend by the end of the financial year. And we've been doing some calls to school around that to ensure that everything is on track and ready. And that's all we have for today. I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions for Laura? No. Okay, thank you very much for that update, Laura. We'll let you escape. We are contacting IT. We're doing that now.
Yep.
Right. We'll maybe have a break there now to give IT time to come in. Okay, so we'll have a 10-minute break. Okay, thank you. We're going to have 1 1/4 of an hour anyway. Thank you. Right, folks, we should be able to get back on again now. Okay, we'll just move right on to just bring in housing. Yeah. Okay, if we could bring in Claire Frew from housing.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to be here today to present a short report for noting on the Housing and Technical Resources contribution to the Council's participatory budgeting programme, building on the updates provided to committee last year. And you'll find this short report on pages 21 and 22 of your papers. The report sets out participatory budgeting in relation to 2 housing and technical resources budgets in East Kilbride during 2022-23. Firstly, we have the estate improvement budget, which consists of a total of £40,000 split evenly across the 4 housing divisions. And it's well suited to funding a series of smaller projects in line with the priorities highlighted by tenants. So it's not a huge budget, and I say it is split evenly across the divisions, but it allows quite a swift response and being able to pick things up quickly in line with tenant priorities. So during 2022-23, a total of £11,373 had been spent in the East Kilbride division on 5 projects, and I'll talk you briefly through each of them. The first was making a series of improvements to the drying and bin area at Quebec Drive. Wooden palisade fencing was installed following conversations and reports by tenants of bins rolling down the hill into neighbouring streets, causing damage to cars. So the improvement was agreed with tenants to put up the palisade, the wooden palisade fencing to stop that from happening and address the concerns that had been raised to the housing staff in the area. The second was about installing benches in the communal gardens at Dunlop Tower, Lister Tower and Fraser Rover Tower, again after discussions of priorities with tenants. Thirdly, removing the old bin store at Bell Green West in response to a series of tenant complaints about how things have been working. Fourthly, replacing the communal path and stairs at Brisbane Terrace, again in line with conversations with tenants. And fifthly, excavating the grass at the Kinross Park drying area. With these 5 projects, that means that the full estate improvement budget allocation is accounted for in East Kilbride. The second budget area for housing and technical resources is the environmental aspect of the housing investment programme. As part of this, participatory budgeting activity was undertaken in 2 sheltered housing complexes in the East Kilbride division in relation to the programme of internal upgrades. Residents in Strathcona House and Bosfield Place sheltered housing complexes had the opportunity to contribute to the plans for internal upgrades, determining a range of finishes such as flooring, tiles and wall coverings. Officers in the sheltered housing complexes held initial meetings with the residents to outline the process, prepared mood boards to allow everyone to see the different styles, completed door visits and sent letters to all households within the complexes asking them to express their preferences on what they would want out of the internal upgrades that were taking place. A total of 67 households took part in the participatory budgeting exercises, with the preferred options taken forward based on 65% of the people voting for them. The total cost of these internal upgrades in the sheltered housing complexes was £421,646. This brings the total amount agreed through participatory budgeting in East Kilbride so far in 2022-23 to £433,019. Officers from Housing and Technical Resources will continue to take forward opportunities to help determine the outcome of spending across the relevant budget areas and provide further updates to committee in due course. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Thanks for that, Claire. Any questions to Claire? No? Okay. Thank you very much for your input, Claire, and we'll let you get away. Ian Ross.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. We provided a brief report at item 7 on page 23 through to 28, sorry, 26. We've had a number of requests from members across all the ward areas for updates on town centres, and it's been agreed that we come via the various area committees to provide those updates. This is the first of that series of reports to the East Kilbride Area Committee, and reports will follow to the other area committees in the coming weeks. So the report at section 3 essentially just sets out some of the challenges that town centres are facing more generally, a number of the dynamics around how town centres operate and perform, and how we are looking strategically and with partners across a number of services and within the towns to deliver strategies and action plans and more strategic documents such as those set out at section 3.8. We use the local development plan to define town centres. So within the local development plan there are 3 strategic towns identified, 7 other towns and 29 neighbourhood and village centres, which within the East Kilbride area, the 2 designated towns are East Kilbride itself and Straven, but there are obviously a number of other neighbourhood and village centres that the members will have an interest in. So the report deals with the 2 designated town centres, and touches very briefly on a couple of items in some of the other towns. So turning to East Kilbride Town Centre itself, members will obviously be aware that it's been a particularly challenging period. There was a report brought to this committee nearly 2 years ago now, setting out some of the work that had been done up to that date, and the excuse me, the work officers were involved with in terms of engagement with the asset management team at that time. Members will hopefully be aware that the bank that was funding the owners called in the loan, and the asset went back to the bank, and that required a new asset management team to be put in place. That happened not long after that committee meeting. That was in April of 21. And in the intervening period, the new asset management team had been getting up to speed and preparing alternative or updated proposals. When I say alternative, there was a lot of synergies in it. Updated proposals as to how to take those matters forward. Most recently, in November of last year, the town centre was put into administration, which again required a change of asset management team, and that asset management team have where possible, kept representatives in terms of the on-site management and some of the commercial advisors, but fundamentally they've had to bring in a new asset management team who have been getting up to speed. As the report notes, there have been a number of meetings already between the administrator, the asset management team and senior officers of the council, excuse me, as most recently as yesterday, and the updated strategy that is referred to in the report, we are hoping that we'll have sight of that before the end of this week, which will then allow us to go to the next stage of discussions with them. I think I do refer to in the report, I can't actually lay hands on it at the moment, that the master planning work there, sorry, it's 4.6. We're expecting that to be approximately a 6-month process from here, at the end of which we'll have a much clearer vision of the strategic approach for the town centre. And again, as noted there, there's a full intention from the asset managers and owners, administrators, and all the officers, that full consultation with both members and the wider community at appropriate points through that process will take place. Excuse me. Turning Briefly then to Straven. Straven has recently completed, or work in Straven around the Conservation Area Regeneration Scheme has recently completed. That was a 5-year programme which was extended to 6 years because of COVID, and was the funding completed back in April of last year. Sorry, excuse me. The last few months have been spent tying off the last few elements of the project, the funding and so on, and that project is now complete. As it notes at 4.9, the town was also successful as a collection of towns bidding for the town centre app that's in place, the Inside Out app. If members are not familiar with it, I would encourage you to download it from your chosen app or Google Store. It's branded as being an online neighbourhood notice board, community notice board, but it also allows businesses and so on to sorry, excuse me, to put on information around their businesses. And finally, there the mention of the funding that Straven were able to secure through the town centre funding to improve aspects of the town mill and provide a tourist information point in the town. I also touched there that Stonehouse, which is part of the East Kilbride area, were also part of the app. So, as I say, it's essentially just an introductory report, which will be followed on by a series of regular updates. I'll maybe just pause there, Chair, and through yourself, happy to take any questions.
Questions to Ian? David.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. A couple of points. Where are we? Are the prospects are trying to get some of the levelling up funding for improvements to the town centre? And I think Cumbernauld seemed to get quite a chunk of money in the last round. Just maybe an idea of that. And in 4.6, it's about progress for the East Kilbride Town Centre. I mean, the team meeting, etc., on a 4-weekly basis, and it goes on to say then about to bring forward a sort of plan, but then it talks about briefing elected members. Will we get an opportunity to see what's going on or what the proposals are before there's a sort of final outcome, and really to get a feel for what you're looking at, or between ourselves and the town centre, what they're looking at, and maybe an opportunity to comment on that before it actually gets thrown in big black pen. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Chair. If I can take the second one first, if that's okay. In terms of the consultation, as I briefly touched on there, the intention, not just from officers, but very clearly from the asset management team, is that yes, there would be broad consultation on the proposals before anything is to use your words, put in big black pen. It is very much a consultative process. The draft that we're seeing is a first, very much a first draft, and it will be consulted on fully before anything's set in stone. In terms of sorry, of course.
Just bear them, and I know it was a while ago now, but we did have a sort of presentation previously about where we saw the town centre going in general, and the civic centre site and all the rest of it. I think a number of comments were made by elected members, and I'm probably just looking for assurance that they've been taken on board, and that we're not just going to go down the same road as we were speaking about previously. Thanks.
So, Yes, it's a simple answer. Yes, all of those comments have been retained by officers. My caveat to that is that we, the officers, have not yet seen what the proposals are, so there may be a process of working these comments back into I'm not necessarily saying that the version we are going to see, hopefully this week, will reflect all of those comments, but yes, certainly the officers have retained the feedback from members from the session that you're mentioning there, and will feed that into the process. But as I say, members will also get the opportunity to give that feedback as well.
Sure.
It's maybe just to assist with some of this discussion, because I was present at a meeting yesterday, convened a meeting yesterday with the one that Ian referred to with the Chief Executive and also with Lisa Cameron MP to discuss the prospect of a levelling up fund bid put behind us. I just want to, I suppose, make 2 points to the committee. One of them is there will be a lot of moving parts in this, and the council isn't the only player. The council doesn't own the premises. The owner, well, as you know, the premises have gone into administration. Although it's reassuring that a lot of the managing agents and architects, as Ian says, have been kept on by the administrators, and really that what we're kind of trading in isn't so much the asset as it is, but the asset as it could be. And I think everyone that's expressed an interest in it, from what I'm hearing elsewhere, is really looking at this as an opportunity to develop. The other the other site, I suppose, is the Civic Centre site, and just bear in mind that there would also can be a kind of moving feast. And I think if I come back to what we've discussed previously, and I'm sorry if I'm talking in code on that one, but if I come back to what we talked about previously, we've obviously moved on some from the actual presentation that I think Michael McGlynn put to the area committee some years ago, just because the owners have changed. And also I have to think the scale of the challenge has changed. I think the scale of the change that has to happen at East Kilbride Town Centre is a lot worse. But certainly, and I'm sure Lisa Cameron wouldn't mind me saying this, levelling up fund bids can come with the support of a Member of Parliament. And what Lisa and I talked about was trying to develop a Team East Kilbride approach to a bid that can back up whatever it is we're seeking to do. We're seeking to intervene in a market that's failed, is the way I kind of look at it. And the principles that we've talked about before about mixed use, the overabundance of empty retail space, the need to make the town centre not just a shopping centre but a true town centre, those ideas, as far as I'm concerned, are very much have been part of all the discussions that we've had. And if they weren't part of the discussions that we've been having, then I don't think myself or even Lisa Cameron would be in a position to allow that to go forward. I just think it's it's difficult to give too much information at this point until the company themselves are in a position to draw up an initial proposal, get the kind of behind the scenes advice they need to get from our officers, and then bring it to councillors, stakeholders, the wider community in a format that we can then comment on and shape. I'm just hoping that we've got the confidence, and I do have the confidence that what they come back with reflects a lot of those ideas that we've spoken about previously. So I suppose I'm just trying to reassure people and say that it's, as I say, it's a moving feast and it's developing, and there's been a bit of a detour because of the centre did go into administration, but fundamentally the overarching objective of what it is we want to achieve, I think we all agree in the committee what we want to achieve hasn't gone away. Just on levelling up, 4 out of 5 bids were not successful, and that's just something to bear in mind. I think there are issues with levelling up as the levelling up fund, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't be bidding and we shouldn't be putting in the strongest, the most compelling bid that we can to try and get as much resource as we can into East Kilbride, because this is not the kind of thing that, if the public sector is going to be a part of it, we can do within our existing budgets. We're going to need some kind of external funding, and probably the best game in town when it comes to external funding is levelling up, because it eclipses what's likely to be made available through things like regeneration capital grant, etc. So I hope that reassures the committee.
Okay, no other questions? Okay, thanks very much for that, Ian. It's very interesting. I'll let you get away. Grant fund applications and the Warm Welcome Initiative. The Warm Welcome Initiative has been dealt with. That was done during the holidays by myself and Geraldine McCann. There was 10 or 11 groups, I think, received funding for that. Posters, councillors were given posters to distribute in the reward. Quite sure you've all done that. So we've also got 5 local grant applications. John, David.
Just on the Warm Welcome Initiative, and I don't know, there might be a mechanism for this and I'm not aware of it, but is there a mechanism for getting feedback about the uptake from the various locations for the Warm Welcome Initiative? Thanks.
All these wee groups, these wee groups are all doing different things, different speeds. I don't think that. So on. Right. I certainly distributed the ones in my own ward. I haven't heard of any. Are they going to go back and talk to them, to the groups? Because it was done in quite short notice. And so, Joe, have you any update on that?
Not specifically, because I would remember it's still running just now. But it's something we are going to have to do as we get to the end of this, because it was not so much from the grants, but certainly from the investment the council put into sort of our partner at SLLC to deliver it. This was new for us. This had never been attempted before. And bear in mind, inflation we hope will settle down, but we're going to face another tough winter not before very long. So I think we are going to have to look at uptake, success, feedback from our partners in the community. I have incidentally, I've spoken to some, or one organisation in particular, who are beginning to bring a network of organisations actually, who are beginning to bring that process that David spoke about together just off their own back. That's something we're going to have to do, because if we're not going to have the same level of resource available next year and there is a similar demand for support from the community, then we need to know that the level of response and how we deploy our resources is going to be done to the best effect. And I think, to be fair, talking to the other group leaders, I think there was an understanding when we set this up that we don't fully know what it is we're up against this year. So I would agree with the point that David's making.
Who ensures that will happen? I mean, it was only myself and is Geraldine McCann involved in that part of it?
Well, we'll just have to look for the officials that led on the actual initiative, but it won't be in there because that's just about the distribution of the grants. But I suppose we'll speak to Finance and Corporate and pick that up at the end of this.
Any other questions? No. Right, can we move on to the 5 local clubs, etc., that have applied for grants? You're all had a look at it? All quite happy with them? Yep. Okay, can I propose on second for that? David.
Sorry, and I meant to do this. Apologies, I meant to check this out before the meeting, so I'm asking here. I'm just not clear on, I think it's the first 2. No, there's a few of them that it's just about, I'll take the first one, East Kilbride District Indoor Bowling Club. Estimated cost £600, total eligible grant applications £350. Then we've got £300. Then it says in brackets £300 bowling club. What are we saying there? And then underneath it again it says £300 other sporting group. Is that just categorising what we're given the grant for? I don't recall seeing that before. Thanks.
And thanks, Councillor Watson. Regarding the first one, the applicant has filled in the section for the detail and the estimated cost at £600. But then they have put the total grant that they're actually asking for is 350 of that 600. But then because the nature of their organisation, they're a bowling club. So on the grant, the information note, they come under a youth club, bowling club, so they're eligible for £300. Does that explain?
Okay, any other questions on any of the grants before we move on? No. Can I propose on seconder? Joe, anybody else? Go on. Kirsten, what about you?
Hiya. It's just to ask, is there another EK area committee before the end of the time delay? Is there another EK area committee before the end of the financial year? Because I see there's 11 grand left, or does that just get rolled forward?
I think there's a date in the paper somewhere. 28th of March is the next one.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Right. So, is that us? We're quite happy. Right. Okay, that's approved. Thank you very much. Right, 2 quick points. I received a letter from a Mr. Ronnie. He lives in Troon, on behalf of his mother, who has been playing badminton in East Kilbride for over 50 years. Right? She's 80, and what he's basically he was looking for some recognition from the council for the commitment the woman has given. I'll read out some of the things, and other things she's did. Yes. Okay. I'm going to tear that thing off and pull your hair. Right. This Mr. Ronnie is looking for a wee bit of recognition for his mum, who's been playing badminton in East Kilbride for the last 50 years and teaching badminton, etc. She's 80 years of age and is still playing badminton on a weekly basis at the John Wright Sports Centre, and has done so on an uninterrupted basis for over 50 years since the Sports Centre opened. The chief exec was copied into this as well, so he had a chat with me. And obviously what we don't want is a separate awards recognition system getting put out there and then you get hundreds of people. Right? So what he suggested, that I bring it up here, we'll listen to the letter and see if we agree. His mother would be mortified, he's saying in the letter, but so I think we should listen to what he's got to have to say, and I'm proposing that if we're quite happy with that, just to say thanks very much for the amount of commitment you've put in over 50 years. We ask the EK News to talk to myself and make a story out of it and acknowledge the commitment the women's given to the town. So I'll run through. She played a key role in the support and development of Housewives Badminton League, which grew from matches between the John Wright Sports Centre and Bellahouston Sports Centres to other sports centres across the west of Scotland. This became a competitive badminton league, which eventually drew in county, west of Scotland badminton players. The John Wright played a key role in this, supported strongly by the council. Jim Jardins mentioned from the council was a key player. The development of badminton at the John Wright Sports Centre was strongly supported by my mother, who has been actively involved in it throughout via organisation, playing, arranging prize-giving, secretary roles. This also allowed her the opportunity to be a badminton line judge at the 1986 Commonwealth Games. She's not aware of this, so she's not looking for recognition, but her son has basically said, could East Kilbride not say thanks very much to her? So, questions?
I think actually the best appropriate place for that would be probably East Kilbride Sports Council, where I'm a member of, but there's recognition awards at the annual awards ceremony, and the nominations are open at the moment, and off the top of my head I think there is a lifetime achievement or something like that, but if you want to pass it on to me, I'll see if we can do something via the Sports Council.
But if we all agree on that. Agreed. John, you flashing away there? I'll rephrase that. Is your light flashing?
No, Chair. I can assure you I wasn't flashing away here. I've got nothing against what David had said there. I was going to suggest that the Provost writes to the lady and thanks her on behalf of South Lanarkshire Council or the East Kilbride Area Committee, given the status of the Provost. No offence to yourself, but I think it's maybe carries a bit more weight. Plus, you could be nominated for the Sports Award of the Year that David has spoke about. But just a thought, and definitely no flashing.
I'm just conscious that you could be setting a precedent there, but there is a mechanism via the Sports Council, if rather than, you know, the council taking on individual, because you could then start getting inundated with stuff.
Concern. So I'll let the Chief Exec know if that's what we agreed to do. Yep. Agreed. Right. Anybody else want the last word on it? No. Okay. Thank you very much for your attendance. Two six. Yep. I've been talking to some members like the loaves and fishes thing today. That was Matthew Buchanan that brought that to my attention, said I think we should have them in. Good stuff, right? There has been for some time, concerns that we need to beef the agenda up with more important issues, right? So I've been talking to Kirsten. She's certainly got some views on who we should be inviting along to this. So rather than just myself and Kirsten driving the agenda, I'm suggesting that we maybe say across the members, maybe get 4 people meeting monthly and say, right, what else do we want to add to the agenda that the council's producing as well, just to make it a wee bit more interesting, because there is a lot of organisations out there who we might not be aware of, you know. So in general terms, I'm looking for, I think we should have 3 or 4 people get together for half an hour and say, right, who are we going to put forward to the clerk to see if we contact them, make it a bit more interesting, maybe more interest through the internet. So any questions? I mean, we can do it across the groups. We can be an SNP member, the Labour member, independents, or 4 interested people. Or 5, whatever. Okay, Joe, sorry.
No, I think it's a good idea, and I think maybe rather than decide who just now, I think we can maybe agree we'll do it, and just maybe with the clerks or yourself, just we can all put forward some people afterwards. Because I agree with that. We should be using the area committees to, you know, just there are lots of issues happening. There are lots of issues that would be useful to make councillors aware of that are specific to that geography, including Straven, incidentally. So no, I agree. I think it's a useful suggestion. I think rather than resolve it all just now, I think we could all take it away and put in some names and coordinate it with yourself and the clerk.
Last comment from Kirsten.
Yep, thanks for taking this on, Archie, much appreciated. Yep, I think any way that gets members being able to have an input, but also rather than also names, but also topics as well. So there might be, as Joe said, things that are unique to the geography, and maybe we could get like an area profile from officers about what are the unique issues. For example, housing has got quite a unique issue in East Kilbride with all the council housing sales and so on, but Straven equally more maybe affordable rural housing issues. So anything that kind of informs us to drive forward the regeneration of our place with the local knowledge that we've got would be great. So happy with the process.
I'll be in touch and I'll put an email in to see who wants to join a small group. Okay, if we're quite happy with that, thank you very much. Thank you for attending.